I love the conversations that we're having with Pastor Jentezen Franklin, challenging us to love like we've never been hurt. So maybe we've gone through a difficult time in our marriages. I'm married, you're married. We know that there are challenges in being married. But what happens on the other end? How can God use maybe the pain in our lives, in our marriages, to heal us?
Yeah. God has a way of using what's left after a conflict, after you go through the fire. He uses what's left. Sometimes things happen in relationships that change everything. But just because things will never be the same again, we forget that God makes all things new. And it may never be what it was, exactly like what it was, but He makes all things new. And if we'll let Him, He'll use what we've got left to build something new and even greater. He's not just God of what you have. He's God of what you lost, and He's God of what you have left. And God wants to use what's left. In the book, I talk about the movie Monuments Men, and I don't know if people saw it or not, but there were men in World War II who were commissioned to do nothing but find historical treasures that Hitler was trying to capture and build his own museum for his own glory, for the Nazi Empire. But these men went in, and their number one job was to preserve historical buildings or treasures. And they were called monuments men. And the story is told when they were going to tear down this beautiful cathedral because half of the building was blown up. But this man stands out in front of the bulldozers and he says, I have a signed letter from the President of the United States that says this is a historical treasure, don't touch it. We're going to build back off of what we've got here, and the stones were burned. And he stopped the bulldozers. And the Lord spoke to my heart, and I preached a whole message, and I put the thought in the book that God wants to use what's left. He uses burned stones. Nehemiah went back to rebuild the temple, and the Bible said all that was left was burned stones, and he started throwing them away, and God sent an angel and said, don't throw away the burned stones. Stones that have been through the fire. Stones that looks like there's nothing left but ashes and burned stones. God uses people who've been through the fire. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came through the fire, the Bible said there was not the smell of smoke in their garments. In other words, the enemy would love the fiery trials that we go through to define us and stay with us, and we smell like what we've been through the rest of our life. Smell like abuse. You know, you've been through it, you've been hurt, you've been cheated on. So that's the aroma of your life. That's who you are the rest of your life. But God can so bring you through the fire that you don't look like what you've been through. You don't have the aroma of that pain and that victim, mentality. He brings you so far through it. He can use what you lost. Somebody needs to hear this today. What you lost was painful, but what you have left is powerful. God's going to use what you have left to afflict your enemy. All Moses had was a handful of ashes, and God said, this is all I've got. He threw it up in the air, and it afflicted the Egyptians with boils. God's going to use what's been through the fire to afflict the enemy. And I believe today that what you have left is enough for God to perform a mighty miracle of restoration and reconciliation with, if you'll put it in His hands.
Well said. You want to get the book, Love Like You've Never Been Hurt.